Hello and welcome to our presentation. We are the Central Time Zone Group Number 1. We're going to start by introducing ourselves. My name is Chimika. I am a middle tier program coordinator for a company in Southern California called PAL Services. I am also a special education tutor. I currently have a BA in social and behavioral sciences, and I am on my last year at Ball State University. And that's it.
Hi guys, my name is Lisette Marina. I work as a registered behavioral technician in Illinois. I provide both in-clinic and EA therapy for children diagnosed with ASD ranging 2 to 6 years of age. I received my bachelor's degree in psychology with a concentration in child development. And now you hear a little bit from Maggie.
Hi, my name is Maggie Tice. I live in Denver, Colorado, and work as a behavioral interventionist in homes and in clinic. I primarily work with elementary age children with ASD. I have a master's in education and human development with a concentration in early childhood special education from the University of Denver, pursuing the BCBA course sequence certificate at Ball State University and ultimately BCBA certification. I'm in my second semester at Ball State and hope to finish the course sequence this fall. Now we're going to go back to Chimeka and he's going to get us started on our actual presentation.
Alrighty. Thank you for that, Maggie. So for our replication, we decided to study the effects of white noise and on off-task behavior and academic responding. The purpose of the study was to monitor the effects of white noise and off-task behavior, as well as its effects on assignment completion and accuracy. White noise was researched as a possible behavioral treatment for ADHD, which could be implemented as a standalone behavioral intervention or concurrent with medication. So for this study, they monitored the effects of white noise on off-task behavior, items completed, as well as items completed correctly. Motor off-task was operationally defined as walking or standing while not attending to the task. Passive off-task was defined as looking at something other than the assignment or task or turning their head away from the task. Verbal off-task was defined as talking to a peer or the teacher about something that is unrelated to the assignment. Task completion was defined as percent of assignments that was completed. Task accuracy is defined as percentage of tasks that were completed accurately or the percentage scored correctly. So the participants in this study were 3 male Caucasian students, Edgar, Kareem, and Cecile, who were diagnosed with ADHD. The ages range between 8 and 9 years of age, and they were prescribed stimulant medication. Edgar and Kareem took 7.5 milligrams of Adderall, while Cecile took 30 milligrams of Vyvanse. And the setting for this study was conducted in a classroom ranging from 25 to 30 students. The materials they used was the Brookstone Tranquil Moments Junior White Noise Generator, Decibel Reader, headphones, and the assignments. For data collection, the observers measured off-task behavior for up to 15 minutes or less or less if the students completed the assignment sooner. During the 30-minute independent work assignment, that sessions were observed 2 to 3 times per week. Observers measured off-task behavior using momentary sampling, meaning that whenever the 15 seconds was up, the observers looked up and looked up at the students and recorded whether they were on or off task. For the research design, for this study, they used an ABCAC research design, which included the A condition, which was the baseline, a B condition, which was headphones only, a C condition, which is white noise, and then there was a return to baseline, and then a return to the C condition, which was headphones with white noise. And this was to show experimental control. and it was basically to measure whether the change that was caused to the dependent variable was caused by the independent variable. For Iowa data, inter-observer agreement data was collected for off-task behavior during 20% of the sessions. The mean overall agreement across the observers was 93%. For treatment integrity, teachers and observers measured percent correct on tasks completed together. Before all conditions, the experimenter gave teachers an 8-item checklist to follow. To reduce possible stigma, the teachers read a script to all students that described white noise. So for the conclusion of the study, they found that off-task behavior decreased during the white noise condition compared to baseline and headphones only conditions. They also determined that white noise did not affect items completed or items completed correctly for any of the participants. For the limitations of the study, they found it is possible that white noise functioned as an abolishing operations for off-task behavior maintained by attention and escape. It is also possible that white noise reduced auditory stimuli that served as an SD for off-task behavior. And for this study, they only had 3 students. So we were saying that a larger sample size would be needed.
So the first article supporting literature was by Sutherland, Loftusness, and Sunuga Bark. The purpose of their study was to compare the effects of white noise on memory performance of both attentive and inattentive students. Their participants included 51 secondary students, 25 males and 26 females. They range from 12 years of age. And what their study demonstrated that there was actually an increase of performance for attentive students during the usage of white noise, but it actually decreased the performance of attentive students. So there was a demonstration of positive correlation between attention and noise, and what they found was that white noise in the natural environment yields an input to our perceptual system, which can either compensate for low noise in the neural system, leading to an output that inputs cognitive performance, or it adds too much to an already well-functioning system. The second article that we found for our supporting literature was conducted by Helps, Bamford, Sunuga Bark, and Sutherland. The purpose of their study was to test the hypothesis that white noise will have differential effects on children with different levels of attention ability through the differential action of stochastic resonance in a way predicted by the moderate brain arousal hypothesis. Stochastic resonance helps detect any sensory signals throughout hearing thresholds. So what that means is basically that any sound gets interpreted and it's found in our nervous system. The participants in the study were teacher rated based off of super, normal, and subattentive children, and they all range from 8 to 10 years of age. The results of their study demonstrated that there was a difference of effect on white noise on performance in the 3 groups. For the moderate level white noise used, it actually worsened the performance of super attentive children, and it improved visuospatial working memory performance in subattentive children. The normal attentive children's performance was unaffected by white noise exposure, and the moderate level white noise was beneficial for performance, whereas too little did not add the power required to bring the signal over to the thresholds, and too much might have overpowered the signal, leading to a decrease in attention and performance. The next article for our supporting literature was conducted by Roche, Bosch, and Bunzek. The purpose of their study was to determine if white noise, when presented during the encoding of scene images, enhanced recognition memory performance. There was a total of 66 participants for their study, 26 of them being women and 12 of them being men. The mean age was about 24.8. The The results, they conducted two separate experiments. The first was a behavioral experiment, which used white noise, and they determined that white noise slightly improved recognition memory when presented during the encoding outside of the MRI. The second experiment included an fMRI and behavioral measures, and they found that white noise selectively enhanced stimulus control phase activity in the auditory cortex. So what they also found during their study was that the perception of a weak visual, auditory, or tactile stimulus can be enhanced by adding white noise, and that white noise increases connectivity between brain regions. They also found that white noise during learning increased memory performance, and that white noise can increase the retrieval speed in simple arithmetic tasks. There also was some evidence that white noise increases overall cognitive functions in children with ADHD. The next study was by Vega et al., and the purpose of their study was to compare noise benefit between children with ADHD and typically developing children in visual cued go and no-go tasks, using both behavioral and neuropsychological measures. They investigated the potential correlations between individual neuropsychological profiles. Participants in their study included 33 children, ranging from 7 to 12 years of age. 13 of them were diagnosed with ADHD, and 7 typically developing children. The results for their study determined that the exposure of white noise during the experimental task showed a positive impact on cognitive performance in children with ADHD. Children with ADHD made more omissions, more impulsive errors, and had slower and more variable reaction times than typically developing peers. However, before, they did have a positive impact on their cognitive performance. The final study was by Jack Bjorkholm, Marsh, Odilus, and Sorkovist. They compared the effects of masking sounds. They used both nature sounds and speech sounds to mask any distracting sounds within their work environment, and they also used headphones only to try to mask any distracting sounds, and they wanted to compare if they were able to match the sounds on cognitive and workload performance. They used 5 different sound conditions, them being quiet, speech, headphones only, headphones with nature sound masking, and headphones with 7 voices masking. For the 7 voices masking, they used 7 women speaking simultaneously as the masking sound. They had 30 participants, 14 being females and 16 being males. They ranged from 19 to 31 years of age, and the results demonstrated that participants were less distracted by background speech when using nature sounds. However, all participants performed better during the quiet condition, and headphones alone did not protect against background speech. And I will pass it on to Maggie, who will discuss the method of our replication project.
Thanks, Lisette. There were 3 participants in the study replication, myself, Lisette, and Shamika. Our ages range from 23 to 28 years old. The replication was conducted entirely in each participant's residence. The materials we used for the project were a white noise generator app for iPhone called Relax Melodies, headphones, computers or laptops, our phones, the Cooper Applied Behavior Analysis book, and the online Cooper Prenhall quizzes that we used for class. We used a 15-second momentary time sampling procedure for our data collection. This means that each interval was 15 seconds long, and at the end of each interval, the observer would record which, if any, was occurring. So, if at the end of the 15-second interval, the participant was engaging in passive off-task behavior, the observer would mark it as off-task and as passive. If no off-task behavior was occurring at the end of the 15-second interval, no data would be recorded. Each observer was responsible for watching their own videos and analyzing their own behaviors. The video recording was of each participant taking the assigned Cooper-Prenhall end of chapter quiz. In addition to recording whether or not off-task behavior was occurring and the type of off-task behavior that was occurring, participants recorded the number of task items completed. This means the number of questions completed on the assigned quiz and the accuracy for which they were completed, or the percentage of items that were correct. This was done by tracking our scores and completion rates of the Cooper quizzes. We analyzed and collected this data to determine the percentage of items completed and the percentage of items that were correct. Each participant then uploaded their video and a screenshot of their Cooper quiz score into the Drive folder, so it would be immediately available for each member of the group to view. There were 5 different phases to our study replication. The first phase was baseline 1, where no equipment was used. The second condition, condition B, used headphones only with no white noise. The third condition was condition C, and this was the intervention phase, which was headphones with white noise. The fourth condition, condition A, was a return to baseline. And finally, the fifth condition, condition C, was a return to the headphones with white noise intervention. Each condition was about 5 video sessions long and used 5 Cooper quizzes. In total, we used 25 of the Cooper quizzes. Each condition of the experiment corresponded with an assigned quiz. We stopped our recordings at 15 minutes, however, most of them were under 15 minutes. Moving on to the IOA. So in the original study, IOA was completed for 20% of the sessions. We also did IOA for 20% of our sessions, or 5 sessions total. IOA was conducted by the participants watching one another's videos and then measuring off-task behavior and the type of off-task behavior using the momentary time sampling procedure. IOA was conducted across each phase of the experiment with 1 session per condition. The IOA was configured by dividing the number of intervals in which both observers recorded the same type of off-task behavior by the number of intervals recorded. So I conducted IOA for Lisette conducted IOA for Chimika, and Chimika conducted IOA for me. This table shows the results of our IOA data. As you can see, we maintained an IOA percentage well over 80%, which was the minimum accepted in the original study. The mean IOA for our group was 97.4%. So we attribute our high IOA score to our thorough operational definition of off-task behavior. Now Lisette will discuss our treatment fidelity procedures with you.
For our treatment procedure, treatment fidelity, we ensured fidelity by implementing and reviewing the steps together through video chats or Google Hangouts during our weekly meetings. The study that we replicated, researched, used treatment fidelity by conducting a checklist to ensure participant and everybody doing the experiment was following the steps needed to conduct the study. So we also created our own checklist. The checklist included all of the steps that each participant had to follow during each session. The checklist included a list of the quizzes and each quiz that corresponded to the session that we were on. The checklist also included a list describing which session corresponded to which condition phase. After completing each quiz, each member of the group sent their scores to their emails and then copied and pasted the results into the shared Google folder. That way we all had access to our results. In addition to uploading the screenshots of the quiz scores, each group member went through the checklist each week and every time before our session to check off all of the boxes. Treatment integrity was maintained at 100%. Our treatment integrity checklist consisted of gathering materials. So we had to gather a laptop, our camera, our phones, if applicable during the condition that we were on, and our Cooper book. We had to set up our camera and laptop within our residence. We had to ensure recording equipment was fully functioning to make sure that our laptop and cameras and headphones were all functioning before recording. We had to ensure that we were on the correct condition phase prior to recording And what that means is we had to just make sure that we were either on condition A, condition B, condition C, or back to condition A or back to condition C. As you can see, the sessions correspond to which condition phase we were on so that we all knew where we needed to be at that specific time of recording. We had to ensure that our Cooper quiz corresponded to the correct sessions, which you will see on the next page. We also had to verify the correct use of our headphones. The original study used tape over the volume so that their participants could not access it and change the volume. However, since we had ours, we did our replication at our own home, we had to ensure that the volume was adjusted all the way during the condition C phase. We also had to make sure that the sound was actually emitting from the headphones during the condition B. That no sound was emitting during the condition B phase or turned our phone on silent. We had to verify that we were actually recording during the time of recording. We had to make sure that once the 15-minute timer was up while we were taking our quiz, or if we completed the quiz before the 15 minutes were up, we had to stop our video. So if the timer went off and we still had not completed our quiz, we still had to stop the video and submit our quiz for results. And if we completed our quiz before the timer went off, then we would stop the recording and submit our results, whichever came first. After that, we would email the quiz results to ourselves and upload them onto the group's shared Google Drive, once again, so that we all had access to our videos and our quiz results. The following slide, like I mentioned before, is the sessions and its corresponding quiz. So each session had its own quiz that we were on that we had to complete. They weren't in order, so we wanted to make sure that it was listed on our checklist so that all of our participants knew which session to be on in relation to the quiz. And now Maggie will discuss the results of the replication check.
So as you can see on this table, we have several averages and ranges because there were 5 phases to the experiment, and each phase had 2 data points. The table shows the results for my data. As you can see in baseline 1, my average for intervals off task was 22.7%. It reduced to 12.4% in the headphones only condition and further to 6.8% in the white noise condition. Then in the second baseline, it goes up to 23.8% and then decreases to 6.8% in the second white noise condition. This suggests that the white noise did in fact reduce my off-task behavior. On the bottom half of the table, you can see the results of the percentage of items completed correctly. Also, please note that there is no data on the table for items completed overall because every participant completed each quiz, so we had a 100% completion rate for each session. In the items completed correctly, the averages do not seem to correspond with an increase or decrease in the percentage of intervals of off-task behavior. Thus, it is unlikely that there is any correlation between the items completed correctly and the percentage of intervals engaged in off-task behavior. The next slide, this slide shows my results in a graph. So you can see from both baseline to white noise conditions that there is a significant decrease in off-task behavior and that the percentage of items completed data stays relatively consistent across the conditions. The next table shows Chumika's data. Chumika had low percentages of off-task behavior through each condition overall. However, there was still a decrease in off-task behavior between the baseline conditions and intervention conditions. You can see that in baseline 1, Chumika was off-task for 1.6% of the intervals. In the first white noise condition, his off-task behavior decreased to 0.2%. It then increased to 1.8% in the second baseline condition and went down to 0% in the final white noise condition. His percentage of items completed, which again is at the bottom, correctly follows a similar pattern to mine. It does not seem to correlate with the percentage of intervals off task, again suggesting that there's no correlation with items completed correctly and percentage of intervals off task. As you can see on Shamika's graph, he had very low levels of off-task behavior across all of the conditions, and his percentage of items correct fluctuates, but does not correlate with an increase or decrease in off-task behavior. You can actually see that in the last phase, the white noise condition, where he had 0% off-task behavior, he had kind of the lowest average of items completed. This final table shows Lisette's results. Lisette also showed a decrease in off-task behavior between baseline conditions and the white noise conditions. In her first baseline, she was off-task for 8.2% of the intervals. In the first white noise condition, her off-task behavior was reduced to 0.4%, a pretty substantial decrease. In the second baseline condition, off-task behavior was 1.4% of intervals and decreased to 0% in the second white noise condition. Lisette's items completed correctly data is more stable across conditions but does not correlate with an increase or decrease in intervals off-task either. Her graph further portrays this data. Here you can see the decrease from the baseline to the intervention, then the subtle increase during baseline 2 and the decrease to 0% in the first final baseline condition. In conclusion, here is a summary of our study replication data. So the percentage of off-task intervals were reduced amongst each participant in the intervention phase, or the white noise phase of the study. Off-task intervals were less in the intervention conditions than baseline conditions and headphone-only conditions for all participants. This was most significant for me. I had over a 15% decrease in off-task behavior between the baseline and white noise conditions. Lisette had around a 7% decrease in off-task behavior in baseline condition 1 and the white noise intervention. She had a decrease of around 1.4% between the second baseline and white noise intervention. Shamika had the smallest decrease in off-task behavior. He had about a 1.6% decrease in off-task behavior between baseline and the white noise conditions. All the participants completed their assignments with 100% completion rate, regardless of the experiment phase. So we don't really have any data for whether or not the intervention would affect completion rates. There was no difference in percentage of items completed correctly in the different phases of the experiment. The off-task behavior that was reduced the most across participants was passive off-task. However, most of us had very little motor and verbal off-task in general. So in conclusion, white noise might be an effective intervention to decrease off-task behavior for students, and white noise does not seem to have an effect on assignment completion or accuracy of completion. Though our study demonstrated a correlation between off-task behavior and white noise, we feel that there were many variables that contributed to this result. Shamika will discuss some of these and the limitations of our study replication project next.
Awesome, thank you. So to talk about the limitations of the study, some of the things that we noticed was that a true baseline, I'll just start over. So we found that a true baseline was never achieved for our replication, and this was due to the fact that we were recording our own behaviors. So there could have been some reactivity there to either the camera being present or us just being aware of our own behaviors. So I think that kind of could have skewed the data a little bit. Another thing we noticed was that since the quizzes were taken in each of the participants' home, this environment is usually free from distraction, unlike a classroom that has 30 plus students in it. So we came to the conclusion that the measured changes from baseline to intervention condition might not be socially significant enough as the ones that were collected in a classroom setting. And also the participants in the original study had ADHD and they were on medications. Participants in the RE replication did not have any pre-existing conditions, nor were they on any stimulant medication. On the original study, they also used the Brookstone Tranquil Moment Junior white noise generator, which was not available for our replication. We were able to find an alternative source, which was the app Relax Melodies that we used. And then also there was no real control over the headphone usage, so the participants could easily take off their headphones and walk away from the task. And then lastly, participants conducted momentary sampling on their behavior, which might be affected by our own biases on our own behaviors. And so we're going to end our presentation by talking a little bit about our experience with the replication on the next slide. So personally for me, I found that this study it made sense because we were already doing assignments. So all we had to do was basically record our behavior. So it was simple to just record the data and not have to go out and do something extra for the assignment. So I found that was why we chose it. But at the end, it turns out that there was little parts of the study that weren't discussed in the study that me and our group members we had to kind of talk about and come up with solutions for. For example, they didn't specify how they measured their intervals, if they waited for the complete interval to pass before they counted it, or did they just stop at whatever interval that they stopped on. And that's pretty much it for me. So Liz, how was your experience with the study?
Thanks, Shamika. My experience, what I found to be the easiest was definitely completing the quizzes, regardless of what condition phase we were on, because I felt like simply putting on headphones only didn't really change much as to how I was already completing my quizzes, especially baseline. And using the white noise itself wasn't difficult. I just had to turn on the app and use it. The actual white noise was pretty hard to listen to, though. It was just a little loud for me and disruptive, to be honest. But I am a relatively attentive person, so I kind of just focused as much as I could on my test so that I could complete it and be done with it. What I found to be the most difficult about our replication project was definitely the analytical work. So completing the IOA and interpreting the way that the original study completed their IOA, and just analyzing all of the terminology was harder for me. But luckily, I had all three of you to help me out with that. What I learned about the actual replication study was the effects of white noise and how beneficial they can be for those that are considered to be lower attentive, or specifically those who have ADHD. So I found that to be really interesting because our literature review actually suggests that if you are considered to be higher attentive, then white noise would decrease your attentiveness. So I found that to be pretty interesting. What I learned overall was that it's a lot harder to complete a replication project, so I definitely did not take this with a grain of salt, and now I am more aware of what it actually takes to do one, so that I appreciate. And that's about it for me. Maggie, what did you think?
Thanks, Liz. So the most challenging aspect of the study replication process for me was staying organized. We had a lot of data to collect and analyze between the different conditions. We had 25 videos and then 25 different quiz scores. So collecting data and watching all of the videos carefully was pretty tedious. We also had a lot of reading to do, and we had to take a lot of extra quizzes because we needed more assignments than what we were assigned each week by the professor. So we just took on a lot of extra work per week. Another challenging aspect for me was just coordinating with group members and collaborating, especially given that we're all in different time zones and we have very different work schedules. So I'm definitely grateful to have had such a flexible group to work with for this project. I learned a lot about conducting a research project and how much work and detail goes into it. So even though it was challenging, experiments and research studies actually seem a lot more approachable now that I have a more thorough understanding of them and the process. I think there were some flaws in our original study, which were more pronounced as we began to replicate it, such as having only 3 participants and not having the assignments used in the original study identified and described. But this has made me better at identifying flaws and limitations in studies in general. So as for my results, I think it's pretty interesting that I did have a substantial decrease in off-task behavior from baseline to the intervention in both conditions. However, I speculate that that was partly due to how much I disliked having the white noise on. I found it really uncomfortable, and it kind of motivated me to work quickly so I would be able to take it off or stop the white noise. Generally, I like some background noise when I study, but not having headphones on and not like a white noise simulator. So it's possible that the white noise actually helped me focus, but even if it did, I don't think this is an intervention I would use to help me study. Anyways, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch our presentation. We really hope you enjoyed it. So we can stop the video.